video will be based on the free response question from 2010, number 4. I put the link at the top here. You can see if you click on this link, it will bring you to the question. Before you watch this video, please try and do the free response, and then you can watch it as I go through it. So this was on climate change and the rise in sea level, and there's only letters A through D. You can see that there's very minimal math here. So if you read it, it says scientific evidence shows a direct relationship between sea level and the global mean atmospheric temperature at Earth's surface. Increases in the global mean atmospheric temperature during the past century have been accompanied by a gradual increase in sea level. Currently, the average rate of increase in the sea level is 3.0 millimeters per year. Additional increases in sea level are expected during the next century as global mean atmospheric temperatures continue to rise. These increases in sea level will affect coastal ecosystems as well as human activity along coastal margins. So if you look at letter A, it says based on the rate cited above, calculate the expected increase in sea level in meters during the next 50 years. So for letter A, pretty simple. You're just going to find the current average rate, which says it is 3 millimeters per year. And you're simply going to multiply that by 50 years, and you're going to have to convert from millimeters to meters. So it's just 3 times 50, which is going to give you 150 millimeters. And then in order to change that into meters, you're going to move the decimal 3 places to the left, and the answer for that one's 0.15 meters. This is the rubric from College Board. Like I said, you just had to multiply and then convert from millimeters to meters. This was a 2-point question, so they gave you 1 point for the correct setup. If you showed either one of these, notice that they didn't expect you to show dividing by 1,000 to convert. And then 1 point for the correct answer. So even if for some reason you made a mistake in your calculations, you would still get at least 1 point. The correct answer is 0.15 meters. Don't forget your units. For letter B, it said to identify the 2 phenomena that result from an increase in global mean atmospheric temperature and that contribute to an increase in sea level. For each phenomenon that you identify, explain how it causes sea level to increase. This one's going to be worth 4 total points, so 1 point can be earned for the identification, and 1 point can be earned for each explanation. Only the first 2 answers will be considered. So if you just started to list because you weren't sure, they were not going to read beyond your first 2 answers here. Notice that they accepted melting of the glaciers or continental ice caps. It says ice caps or polar ice caps are not acceptable answers by themselves. These alone would not contribute to a significant increase in sea level. The explanation is the ice melts, the amount of water in the ocean increases. It's probably the same for this one, the melting of the ice sheets, like Greenland and Iceland, same thing. Melting of the Antarctic ice shelves. We talked about the Larsen B ice shelf that broke off over a period of months, and so this is just adding to the sea level. The other one, which you know is the #1 reason why the sea level is rising, you could have wrote thermal expansion. So because the temperature is warming, the atmospheric temperature, the water is warming, and therefore we're seeing water molecules move farther apart, and so this is due to thermal expansion. So you needed 2 phenomenons and 2 explanations, and only the first 2 that you listed would be correct. For letter C, it says to describe 2 environmental impacts that an increasing sea level will have on an estuarine ecosystem such as those in the Mississippi Delta, Chesapeake Bay, and the San Francisco Bay. You can read 1 point can be earned for each description of the environmental impact. Only the first 2 impacts are considered. So again, if you start to give a laundry list of impacts, that is not going to be acceptable. Only the first 2 are going to be red. And they're not giving you necessarily a point for the impact here. They're giving you a point for the description. So because the sea level is rising, we'll see loss, flooding, erosion of estuary habitat. So now we're going to have more open ocean versus an estuary where we have brackish water because that sea level is inundating the estuary. And so some of your descriptions you can see may lead to inland migration of wetlands, loss of species. You could have said loss of biodiversity. We know that our estuaries are the breeding grounds and nurseries of the ocean. So loss of species again that rely on the estuary for protection. Changes in depth, light levels, and temperature causing migration or local extinction. All of these would have been correct. I probably would have also described the change in salinity. So because you're going to have more salt water in the estuary, the salinity is going to increase. So if you would have said that, may lead to loss of species that have a small salinity tolerance range. So the more salt, the less species you're going to have. And then you can see increased storm destruction, increased nutrient loads. So that gives you a few other examples here of what you could have written. Again, this is worth 2 points. We actually go on to the next. They include this impact, which is interesting. Spreading of oil spills that occur in ocean to inland areas. So I guess if you have an oil spill and the estuary is not there, you're just going to have that oil make its way more inland, which could suffocate organisms and it could cover birds. But I don't think that you guys would have come up with that one. That's far-fetching. Okay, for letter D, it says it says although sea level has been rising for over a century, human populations in coastal areas have increased dramatically during this period. So we're still moving to those coastal areas. Describe one negative economic impact that an increase in sea level will have on people who live along coastlines. So for this answer here, it's worth a total of 3 points. So 1 point can be earned. Well, sorry, excuse me. This part is only 1 point. Letter D is 3 total points. 1 point can be earned for the negative impact. So, and the first negative impact, again, they're not going to accept a laundry list here. So you need to be specific and be confident with your answer. So what is an economic impact? Again, it says to describe, so you need this description here. You could discuss the damage to private property. So because we have an increase in the sea level, the cost of replacement, relocation, or improved construction to reduce storm damage, so it's going to cost money. Increase insurance, decrease in property values, you're not going to be able to sell it. Loss of income, so loss of commercial fishing. You probably wouldn't have come up with this one. Loss of food supply. So people who rely on fishing and agriculture in coastal areas will need to buy food. And then saltwater intrusion. So we're going to have a decrease in our freshwater drinking supplies. We're going to have more salt water that's making its way into our wells, and we may require expensive desalination treatments. So that any of these would be accepted for a negative impact. And then for number 2 under part D, this is worth a total of 2 points. Describe 2 viable strategies that governments could use to discourage people from moving to the coastal areas. So how could they deter people from moving there? Only the first 2 will be considered. So how could they get us to not move there? One of the best answers always is education. So advertise, discourage the movement to the coastal areas, explain why that the sea level is rising and that it could potentially inundate those areas, raise insurance premiums, raise property taxes, and so all of these remover band structures designed to stabilize shoreline like seawalls, And all of these would be examples. Impose a tax to support beach area protection. They took incentives is always an excellent answer as well. Offer incentives to relocate inland. Maybe lower property taxes inland. And so that was it for your FRQ. I hope this helped.